Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mission Yozakura Family Season 1, Episode 23. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with Futaba versus Akai, where we kind of get to witness even more of her power, and we actually sadly learn her backstory. She was someone that Makoto, he was already looking for subjects, and I guess he had already had an eye on her, but it turns out her house got burned down because a pyromaniac burned it down, and you're like, oh, the irony is her Hasakura gave her fire abilities, but it's like, the way Makoto or Kawashita puts it, it's like, it took like a blaze and the Hasakura to basically come about her rebirth. So I guess it was almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes. He did say it was a good thing he brought her sibling's body, and it did seem like he cut her open. So I don't know if he grafted parts of their skin that was still intact onto her body, hence the red marks on her body. Maybe those are kind of where her skin meets her sibling's skin, or it might just, like I said, it looked like she was cut open at one point. So it might have been her siblings' organs, because she might have had organ damage, or they might have been heavily damaged because of smoke inhalation, or because it could have been her lungs or something were heavily damaged because of the fire. But yeah, that's, I think, a chicken or the egg type of thing of which is it the horror and trauma of what she went through of, her family dying and being the only survivor, and it was by fire that she ended up gaining a fire ability, or did it unlock it's chicken or the egg there. And when she got her revenge on the guy who killed her family, Kawashita's like, oh, are you happy? And she's like, yes, and tears coming down her face, because it's and I love how that ties into what Futaba says to her. I thought was so interesting. But anyway, I'm gonna circle back to that, but we get to see Futaba still effortlessly fight, but we see her kind of really kick it up this episode, because her thing is deflecting. That's her main mode of fighting, as we've seen time and time again, of how she's able to utilize that. I never thought about it until now, but I was seeing her, especially when she's deflecting, it kind of reminded me of the rotation ability by the Hyuga clan in Naruto. It definitely gave me that vibe, especially with all the deflecting she does. But obviously she doesn't have to spin. She just operates the air around her and creates a vacuum that deflects. Because Akai, speaking of Naruto, kind of has a little bit of a Tsukuyomi thing going on, where she's like, my flames will not burn out until they burn whatever they're touching. So it's kind of got a Tsukuyomi thing, not Tsukuyomi, Amaterasu, because Amaterasu, at least in the confines of Naruto, is they burn for 7 days and 7 nights. It's supposed to be the lore behind that, if I'm remembering my Naruto lore correctly. That's supposed to be how those flames work. But I mean, that's the thing, everyone that's probably a part of this, and I talked about it previously, Kawashita probably has a sad backstory, but it's still the thing of, they're all loyal to this group that gave them a second chance, and all she has is in front of her, it's hey, I'm gonna burn and beat up anyone who annoys me. But it's it's her way of, it's Akai's way of dealing with everything she's been through. She's right, I don't care, I'm not doing this for my family or for me, or living this life, or giving a care about this crappy world, because Kawashita's right, we're gonna create a new world, and she's I don't care about any of that. Why would I care? I just want to burn and kill the people in front of me. But this whole situation forced Futaba to activate her blooming, because it turns out that the Nijibana in particular do have their own version of blossoming, and obviously theirs doesn't take on the form of the blossom. Theirs is it's more in the form of a multi-pointed star. But what was it that she called her specific blooming is, I'm going to butcher the word, but it's magnanimity. I can't say the word, I'm struggling with it, but it's her thing is being magnanimous. I didn't think it's just kind of she's able to just neutralize everything. She's I'm gonna take all that hatred you have towards me, and then just kind of even these flames that aren't supposed to be distinguishable, I am able to neutralize them. And that's her thing, even to the point that Akai was going kind of critical and was going to blow up. But even in that process, because Futaba made it clear, she's like, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm also not going to die here. I'm just going to stop you from being in my way. And so in her own, with her powers, she neutralized, as Kawashita puts it, like the spark of the Yozakura cells inside of her. And then and bringing it all full circle, like I was talking about with her family and her trying to pretend like she doesn't care. Like Futaba says, like, no one can tell someone who's lost everything to not fall into despair. Like it's insane to try and tell someone who's going through something like that. But she thinks about, she's like, but I know a kid who found a way to overcome that, you know, who, yes, like her, Tayo lost everything, but here he is. He found his way forward, and he came out stronger on the other side of it. So it's the thing of Kawashita still seems like he's so in control, and it's unclear. It did seem like the fact is what Futaba did kind of struck me. He knew, like, no matter what, the Hasakuras could never ever deal with the original. So he's like, if you ever cross someone who activates blooming from the Yosakuras, do not fight them because you will not have a chance. Your Hasakura has gone as far as it can. Like our fake cannot compete with the original and everything. So luckily, Akai is still alive. Obviously, the little girl, Ai, is the most concerned because she doesn't want any of the people she cares about getting hurt, especially later on when it turns out that they find out that the Yosakuras are going after their test subject, and he's kind of like, well, we don't want that data to go to waste, so we'll basically have to kill all the test subjects. And she's like, no, please don't do that. He's like, don't worry, I'll have to make you some new friends. But she's like, please don't. And then, Mizuki puts his hand on her, and this is our first time where he's always been so consoling to her. This is the first time we've seen his darker side, and the moment he touches her head and he's looking that way at her, she shrivels up a little, and she's like, right, I'm sorry for being unreasonable, Mr. Mizuki. So they kind of have this playful, like, oh, everything's cute, you know, a typical bad guy thing of like, oh, he's like, just like Kawashita. Kawashita seems all fun and silly, but he can also be like a maniacal evil bastard, you know? So I'm sure Mizuki's the same way, but once again, we don't know his backstory. Like I said, the same thing about Kawashita, but I'm like, backstory or not, it's probably going to make him a little sympathetic. It still don't justify all that he's done. But in his own mind, it might be the villainous thing of, well, we're going to do villainous stuff, but we're going to at least, you know, we're helping people in the end. So isn't that, you know, that's why he's probably this whole seed sowing project and what he has planned for the future. Once again, how much of this is his plans versus whoever it is that has taken an interest in Momo, that allowed him to be a part of Tampopo or at least work with them. Like I said, last episode, it's unclear on whether, was it last episode or episode before last, the whole conversation of it's unclear whether or not the person who, like, is Kawashita like the end all be all for Tampopo? I highly doubt it. I think he has someone above him, or is that someone that's above him not even associate with Tampopo? It's more like Tampopo's under them. He's kind of his own thing, or they're their own thing, and Tampopo's a thing underneath them that is like, oh, you're a means to an end. You're just an associated organization. I brought that point up previously. Like I said, I can't remember if that was last episode or the episode before last. What was the dude's name? The ice dude's name is like Aonuma or something like that. He went up against Kingo and Nano for a little bit, and we get to see a little bit of what Kingo's been working on. The was it Popopo or whatever that place's name is, that he was making essentially shadow clones. They're like meant to be like puppets that kind of pop like balloons, because I think they are supposed to be like automated balloons, but he didn't even really have a chance to really heat up because Aomuna was like sent away because of the whole test subject thing. Because the other dude, the dude who's basically second in command in Nijibana, is fighting Shinzo. And that's interesting to learn his backstory. He seems like he might have been a bad guy. They were just like, we saw him what appeared to be in front of judges, in front of a courtroom. I think it's interesting because we got like this sympathetic perspective with Akai. With this guy, no, because I don't know if he was just a killer in his previous life or what his circumstances were. The fact is that we didn't get to see his face. We only saw him from behind. I think it's interesting. But either way, I like he seems a little like shadowy, but he can also bend his body to like weaponize it in any shape or form. Like his body is almost like liquid shadow. And even Shinzo was like familiar with it because he's like it's based on some Yozakura technology that they've worked on in the past, and none of Shinzo's bullets are working, and so he ends up having to pull out a weapon because I love that whole situation because initially Shion wanted him not to fight this guy because he's like, this guy is kind of the worst person for you to fight. But for Shinzo, it's like, no, I might be the right person to fight him. Because Shinzo doesn't like the fact that this guy, as Kawashita puts it, it's like has no fear. He will kind of cut down anyone in front of him. He's cutting through his allies and he doesn't care as long as he's getting towards his, which he was on his way to like supposed to be going towards the research lab and stuff. But, well, he was supposed to kind of like make his way there, but kind of deal with all of this first and foremost. But Shinzo, we learn like, right, he hasn't activated his blooming in years, but for him, this is like, no, I have to. Futaba went through like the trouble of activating her blooming. Who am I to not give this my all? And that's something Ayaka kind of brings up. It's like, right, a couple episodes back, Shinzo made the decision like, I've got to like step up now that it's my time to. I have to. I've kind of like been so scared and reluctant to kind of go all the way. It's like, this is the time to go all the way. Because we know that he was building a certain weapon for himself, and we see it. It's like this malleable kind of alloy. It's meant to be like it's in the same vein as this Hazakura's powers, and it's like this malleable alloy, which I think it's so dope that obviously the weapon expert being able to have a weapon that can shapeshift into different things, a shield, a hammer, a sword, but it looks like it's scissors. So Ayaka's the one that was kind of cheering him on, saying like, right, he made this decision. He decided to make this weapon, the turmeric, and he decided to step up. And we learn why Shinzo does not want to use his blooming. Because the first time he activated it was by accident, but he doesn't really remember it, and it terrifies him. And we kind of understand why. It's because Shinzo doesn't like hurting people. Because the reason why, like, this guy is willing to hurt anyone, but Shinzo's perspective is weapons are meant to be used to protect people. And so it shouldn't be used just to willy-nilly hurt people. And we had that flashback with a young Shinzo who was traumatized by his blooming. And it's like his mom kneels down and it's like, okay, like what it comes down to is you believe in protecting people. And what scares you the most is the fact is of using said power to hurt anyone, to kill anyone. And she's like, it takes a strong and kind person to be afraid of their own power, and then it's like, thinking back on that memory is what pushes him to the very end. And it's like, right, he activates his blooming. And he was like, please make sure you don't die. Because it's like Shinzo doesn't want to kill his opponent in this moment. But it's like, I want to protect what I want to protect, but I don't want to have to kill. He doesn't want to take a life in the process. So I think that's what, such an interesting, like, not contradictory, it's what's the word I'm looking for? I guess oxymoronish would be interesting about like the complicated dichotomy that is Shinzo's perspective on things, So the episode ends with him activating his blooming, and we won't get to see it until next episode what that really entails, especially in conjunction with the turmeric weapon, especially because the last form we've seen him take it takes on the form of a glaive before he activates his blossoming. So who knows how he's going to utilize that. They also don't have to worry about reinforcements from Tanpopo because they destroyed kind of like, I guess, a lot of the things that would allow them to send signals out. Keiko was the one who was like firing at them with Shion telling like, okay, like where to aim, which I love that like Bomb was sitting there like, oh my God, perfect, being so excited about that. But other than that, we also got, which is obviously Taiyo and Kishiro's main goal, we see their mom's body. So based on the intro and based on seeing where her body is, it's kind of like being like not cryogenically frozen, but at least kept in like some container. It's like, right, so she's kind of the piece to the puzzle of this seed sowing project, and I guess that's where the seed of it comes from, because she's a Yozakura, and the Yozakura blood being the foundational piece to everything with the Hasakura and Tenpopo. But it's also like, right, she's a mother, you know, she can give birth like she gave birth to Yozakura. So I'm sure like there's layers to where the word seed comes into play in that capacity. So it's going to be interesting to see the conclusion to Shinzo's fight, but also the fight that's being set up next episode, because based on the title, it's Shion and Kingo that are stepping up to the plate. Shion and Kingo next episode. So I talked about this last episode, but I really love those type of like situations where like a party breaks up and it's just like, yo, let's separate. Everyone goes on. Like, once again, the example I used previously, and it's always the fun. It was like the first time I'd ever seen that, I think, would be like the Sasuke retrieval arc in Naruto. But like Trails of Cold still does that, especially in technically they do it in 2, but they mainly do it in 3, where it's like, hey, like certain people stay behind to fight the enemy that's in front of you, the rest of you go on ahead. So you know, I'm excited to see what happens when Shion and Kingo really step up into play, and I'm assuming because of the nature of these fights, they are going to have to activate their bloomings and see what those manifest themselves to look like. Because the ice guy, I'm assuming Kingo's going to fight him. Because I can't remember if they said the other person's name. I definitely saw Shion and Kingo's, but like the ice dude's name came up, like I said, Anuma or whatever. And I don't remember who the other person that's going to be fight. Oh, Cha-Cha, that's what it was. The Cha-Cha and Anuma. So that leaves I and Mizuki as like other combatants. So that would still leave Nano, which I could see Nano going up against I, and that would probably leave Kishiro to go toe to toe with Mizuki, leaving Kawashita, but also Momo, because we haven't seen him. But I think we saw him last episode, but he's not here right now. But it's like, or he's out and about. But that's mainly going to be Kawashita or Momo, or if not both, it's going to be Tayo. So, because I'm assuming like Shion's going to go up against Cha-Cha and Kingo's going up against Ice 2, because I think that's the way their names are written, like Shion, Kingo, Cha-Cha, Ice Dude's name. So we'll have to wait to see what the next episode has in store for us to see how that all shakes out. Obviously, we've only got a handful of episodes left in the show, so, or at least this season, so I'm excited to see where things take us going forward. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.